On July 15, 2043, a massive virtual reality game called Infinity Dendrogram is launched worldwide. Reiji decides to play it and is transported into another world. A talking cat named Cheshire welcomes him and tells Reiji that he will need a player name. Reiji chooses the name Ray Starling, thinking it's just a twist on his first name and the English for his last name. Cheshire then tells him to choose his looks and equipment to make his own avatar, but Reiji decided to keep his default look with a little tweaking. After changing his hair color and some other tweaks, and Cheshire gives him an item box that contains his initial traveling expenses. Cheshire also gives him his Zeroth form embryo that will undergo a completely different evolution, so it can match him personally. Cheshire shows him the categories he got that consist of a tool-shaped type arms, monster-shaped type guardian, and lots of other rare and high-end types that these 5 can evolve into. Finally, Reiji decides to head to Kingdom of Alter's capital Altia, to begin his new journey on this game. After that, Reiji falls from the sky inside the Kingdom of Alter and lands safely, which even surprises him. Inside, he runs into a girl who crashes into him so hard that it leaves him heavily injured. The girl quickly uses her powers and heals Reiji right away, and she then explains that she has been looking for her little sister. Before leaving, she gives Reiji her contact information and asks him to reach out if he ever finds her sister. Reiji also learns that the girl is actually Liliana, an Alter Knight of the Royal Guard. Right after she leaves, a quest window suddenly appears in front of Reiji, and it tells him to find Liliana's little sister. Seeing this, Reiji is confused and wonders why he ended up triggering such a difficult quest. After that, Reiji heads to the city's central fountain. When he arrives there, he sees a grizzly bear playing with a group of children. The bear introduces himself as Shu Starling and offers to show Reiji around the town, and Reiji then explains Liliana's quest to him. After hearing about it, Shu explains that Liliana is probably the most popular person in the country. He also tells Reiji that this world works like a real world, which means there are no special requirements for triggering quests. In response, Reiji shows him the note that Liliana gave him earlier, and the note contains information about a place where her little sister might be, giving them a possible clue about where to begin their search. Shu figures out that if she's bringing insect repellent, then she has gone to Old Reve Orchard outside the capital. Old Reve Orchard is in ruins overrun by insect monsters, and they have to finish this fast because it's the kind of quest he would automatically fail after a certain amount of time. Shu further explains that in this world there is no guarantee that the people involved in a quest will stay safe until the player actually completes it. Later, the two of them arrive at the Old Reve Orchard and Reiji forms a party with Shu so they can work together to finish the quest. Before they head in, Reiji asks what happens if a player dies in the game. Shu explains that the penalty is a 24-hour login lockout, which is equal to 72 hours in the real world. Once inside the orchard, they find Liliana surrounded by a huge swarm of insects while desperately trying to protect her little sister. Before the situation can get any worse, Shu and Reiji arrive just in time and rescue them from the insect monsters. After being saved, Liliana thanks Reiji for coming, and she explains that if he had not shown up when he did, her little sister could have ended up in serious danger. Feeling embarrassed by the praise, Reiji says that he really did not do much and mostly watched while Shu fought the insects. Right after that, Reiji receives another notification from the system. The message informs him that 2 NPCs have joined his party, and those new members are Liliana and her younger sister. Shu then explains that this is considered a level 5 quest because the level 210 Liliana is directly involved in it. Not long after, the group comes under attack from several worm-like creatures, known as demi-dragon monsters. Shu comments that the difficulty of the quest makes sense when they have such a powerful helper in their party, but he also confidently points out that those monsters are nowhere near strong enough to stand a chance against him. Knowing that he is level 0, Reiji takes Liliana's sister to the exit door, and he doesn't want to be a burden on the others. Reiji asks Liliana's sister why she came all the way here to remember, and she replies that today is her sister's birthday and she was going to make her a remberry cake. Just then, one of the monsters tries to attack them, but Reiji dodges the attack in the end and thinks that if Liliana's sister dies, then the situation could escalate. Reiji decides to take on the monster by himself, but the fight goes badly for him and the creature easily overwhelms him, and he is forced to use several health potions just to stay in the battle, and he refuses to give up and keeps fighting. During the battle, the monster suddenly rushes toward Liliana's little sister and attacks her. Reiji quickly jumps in to protect her and catches her before she can hit the ground. He is relieved to see that she is still alive, and he realizes that the life-saving brooch she was carrying is the reason she survived the attack. Knowing that he cannot win on his own, Reiji asks his embryo for help. In response, a powerful shield appears and blocks the monster's attack, saving him from taking a direct hit. The girl summoned by the embryo then appears before him, and moments later she transforms into a giant sword. Using that sword, Reiji is finally able to strike down the monster and defeat it. After the battle ends, Embryo takes the form of a young woman and introduces herself to Reiji. She explains that her name is Nemesis and that she was born from his body, heart, and soul. Later, Reiji brings Liliana's little sister safely back to her. Liliana sincerely thanks him for saving her sister's life and is clearly grateful for everything he did. Not long afterward, Reiji finds out why Liliana's sister went to such a dangerous place to get the fruit in the first place. It turns out that Shu had gone to the market early and bought up all of the fruit before anyone else could get any, leaving her with no choice but to search for it in that dangerous area. A group of people talks about how their plan to give poison to Liliana through remberries failed because all the remberries had vanished from the shops. So they ended up having to send in some demi-dragon worms, and the issue is that their backup plan also failed miserably. They also can't understand the fact that a jobless level 0 man managed to defeat a demi-dragon worm, and now they are looking forward to wiping him out as well. Meanwhile, Reiji and the others are celebrating Reiji's arrival and his first quest-cleared party at a restaurant. Shu tells Reiji that the owner of this restaurant is a 3-star chef, just like in the real world. Surprisingly, Reiji receives some updates from his real life that he is hungry and how he needs to go to the restroom. Reiji then decides to log out for a while, and when he removes the VR, he gets surprised to see that only 1/3 of all that time really passed. When he logs back, Reiji and Nemesis are surprised to see that Shu has eaten all the dishes, and now he wants to go for a second round. While Nemesis enjoys her food, Reiji asks Shu if embryos change shape as they evolve and wonders if his Nemesis changes out of this human form. However, Shu tells him that evolution style is all up to the master, but Nemesis will probably always be a maiden except for her arms portion that evolve into a different style. Shu also shares that he knows someone with a maiden embryo and her secondary type changed in a lot of different ways. Upon learning that there is even a final form of embryos that is called the superior embryo, which is so called because it surpasses the limits of the highest rank. After that, Reiji asks Shu about his relationship with Liliana because he feels that she seems to resent him and even wonders if he might be her ex. Shu then explains what really happened, and he says that 6 months earlier in Dendro time, the Alter Kingdom was involved in a war against an invading nation and ended up losing. During that conflict, ranking players were expected to take part in the fighting, and the reason Liliana is so upset with him is because he chose not to join the war even though he was one of those ranking members. To make matters worse, the last knight commander who lost his life during the war was Liliana's own father. Shu goes on to explain that he has completely upgraded and changed his equipment because there is a chance he could be involved in the next major battle. Hearing that, Reiji asks whether Drife is planning to attack again, and Shu replies that Drife is continuing to strengthen its forces while Alter is becoming weaker. He also explains that after Alter lost the war, many players left the country and moved to other nations, making the kingdom even less powerful than before. After hearing all of this, Reiji realizes that he has finally found a goal for himself. He decides that from now on he will focus on becoming stronger so that he can eventually reach the level of a ranking player. The following day, Reiji also upgrades and changes his equipment. Since he wants to find a job that suits him, Shu helps him by using the suitable job diagnostics catalog to look for the best option. It turns out, Reiji gets a high-ranking job that is supposed to be Paladin, and its requirements are to defeat at least 50% of demi-dragon class boss monsters himself. In addition to that, he also has to donate some money to the church and get a recommendation from a key knight or related figure. After that, Reiji goes to Liliana to get a recommendation, and then he donates 200,000 liras to the church. Reiji then goes on to his new job, and at first he thinks it's pretty easy as he is practically invincible here. During the fight, he finds 2 people struggling against goblins, and to help them out, he quickly throws some heal on them. With that, they manage to defeat all the goblins easily, and they introduce themselves as Rook and Babylon, who is Rook's guardian-type embryo. Suddenly, Babylon starts getting freaky around the boys that makes the situation uncomfortable for all of them. Rook invites Reiji to have some tea with them, where Reiji is surprised to see Babylon eating like a complete child. When they get done eating, Reiji promises to form a party with them soon, and then he heads towards the jungle so that he can get up to level 13 by today. Out of nowhere, Reiji gets a headshot by a strange being that is a monster-shaped embryo which is actually a guardian. Nemesis tells Reiji to get away from there because it must be a guardian's high-rank offshoot-type legion. Reiji then gets shot by a strange figure and dies on the spot that even gives him a penalty for 24 hours. After returning from his death penalty, Nemesis blames herself for not being able to protect Reiji, saying if she would have made another mistake, then she could have lost him forever. Reiji tells Nemesis that the two of them are both still very weak, but that also means they can become stronger together. He says that if they keep improving, they will eventually be able to get revenge on the person who killed them. Hearing this gives Nemesis a reason to keep moving forward alongside him. That night, Reiji takes Nemesis to a cemetery near the royal capital. A large number of player killers have suddenly appeared around the area, and the only place they do not seem to be targeting is the tomb labyrinth located beneath the royal cemetery. Reiji enters the labyrinth, only to discover that he has wasted more than 100,000 lira on a permit. Since he did not know that his Paladin class gives him free access to the tomb labyrinth, he ended up paying for something he never needed to buy. As they make their way through the dungeon, they encounter several zombies. However, Nemesis is extremely frightened by them, and her fear makes it difficult for Reiji to properly control her while she is in her sword form. Even so, they manage to push forward and eventually clear the entire first floor. After finishing the first floor, they decide to continue deeper into the labyrinth and head down to the underground level. Soon after arriving, they are suddenly attacked by a strange man who mistakes them for monsters. Once the misunderstanding is cleared up, the man introduces himself as Figaro. Reiji is surprised to learn that Figaro is one of the highest-ranked players on the leaderboard. Figaro explains that the reason he is in the labyrinth is very simple, as he just likes exploring and spending time in this dungeon. Later that night, Reiji carefully spends time polishing Nemesis in her sword form. The reason for this is that Nemesis is completely disgusted by the blood and filth left on her blade from all the zombies they fought earlier, so Reiji polishes her until she is satisfied. The next day, Reiji and Nemesis meet with Rook and Babylon at a restaurant to discuss the player killers. Rook asks Reiji if Figaro figured out something about the P case in the south and their blockade, and Reiji says that it must have been hard for him to do something. He explains that since Figaro is based in Dual City, he would likely open up the southern grounds on the way there, but he has no reason to clear out any other area. Soon, a woman wearing black suit appears at their table and introduces herself as Marie, a journalist from Dendrogram Information Network. Marie says that she will share some information about the PK blockage in exchange for some money, and Reiji, being a millionaire, decides to pay her while Rook covers the half. Marie explains that the bands of player killers that had occupied the hunting grounds in all four corners of the kingdom are now paying the penalty for dying. Marie explains that K and R are controlling the eastern area, while Mad Castle has claimed the south and Goblin Street has taken control of the west. According to her, these three PK clans had divided the territory among themselves and were treating those areas as their own. She then adds that the only people capable of defeating groups like these are the masters who have evolved their embryos to the 7th form. The group is then shown a video that captures one of these intense battles. In the footage, Figaro is seen fighting another powerful opponent in a fierce and brutal fight. After that, attention shifts to the Eastern Front. The next video shows the leader of the Lunar Society clan, a religious group from Japan named Tsukuyo Fuso. Seeing this, Reiji becomes curious and starts wondering why someone like her is even spending time in this world. Marie guesses that Tsukuyo is probably interested in exploring a world where souls can exist and interact in ways that are impossible in reality. Next, Marie shows a clip of Lei, who is actually a profound fighter and has a nasty habit of poisoning newbies with a juice lookalike. Lastly, Reiji asks her who exactly was the player killer in the north, but Marie says that the identity of the PK in Nas Forest is unknown since they are a superior killer. After watching the clip, Reiji and the others learn that the enemy's embryo is actually a battleship. They are also surprised to find out that even after the entire Nas Forest was burned down, that person still managed to survive without suffering any serious damage. Hearing this, Nemesis considers it good news rather than bad news, because it means they will still have the chance to face that opponent themselves one day. Later, Reiji and Nemesis travel to the ruins of Nas Forest and are shocked by the massive destruction left behind by the battle. A short while later, Nemesis notices something that looks like a portal floating in the air and walks through it. Reiji quickly follows after her and suddenly finds himself in a strange place where Cheshire is sitting together with Nemesis. Confused by the situation, Reiji asks Cheshire what he is doing there, and he explains that he had been busy preparing for environmental maintenance work. Cheshire is also surprised to see the two of them in that place because ordinary players are normally unable to enter it. He then explains that unusual things like this can happen because Reiji possesses a maiden-type embryo, allowing him to access places and events that most players would never be able to reach. Before leaving, Cheshire decides to share a few last warnings since Reiji and the others are heading toward Gideon. He tells them to be careful and gives them a strange piece of advice that an ogre's heart is always in its stomach. Later on, Reiji and Rook start looking for new missions while talking with others about their different jobs. As they chat, Reiji notices that the three of them stand out a lot because they are all very attractive, which ends up drawing attention from people around them. Soon after, Marie suddenly appears again at their table. Reiji discovers a level 2 quest that involves simply delivering goods from the local guild to another guild in Gideon, with a reward of 30,000 lira. Elsewhere, a cart carrying citizens is suddenly attacked by goblin monsters, and the goblins kill several innocent people, and some of the survivors try to escape, but a huge monster appears and wipes them out as well. Later, Reiji and the others head to Gideon in a carriage that is being pushed by Marilyn, the tri-horned demi-dragon that Rook had. He tells them that he did some modeling for an artist and got it as a reward to boost his monster-enhanced skill to good use. Marie then tells them that her journalist skill boosts the entire party's experience points. They then notice another carriage being attacked by a group of goblins, and Reiji says that he wants to save them no matter what. Rook orders Marilyn to charge into the goblins, and it manages to kill a bunch of them while the rest of the group uses their powers to deal with the others. What surprises Reiji is that Rook and Babylon have their own deadly duo, using which they manage to defeat the goblins easily. Before the head of the carriage could thank Reiji for coming to save them, a red monster appears out of nowhere and attacks him. Reiji uses his counter-absorption skill to block that attack, and notices that he might be even more powerful than those rotten bugs earlier. Marie then tells Reiji to be careful since that is a unique boss monster, and Reiji recognizes it as a bountied monster named Gardanda. As he moves into attack, Gardanda uses its disgusting spray attack that covers the entire area in dark mist and even reduces everyone's health because of it being poisonous. Gardanda then tries to attack Reiji, but Rook's Marilyn saves him on time and attacks the monster, but he is still no match for him. Babylon uses Lilim temptation technique, but it doesn't work at all, and monster turns towards Reiji, who uses his vengeance's min technique to destroy a bunch of fingers of Gardanda. Reiji thinks that he can offset the HP loss from the poison and the intoxication and the weakness. Suddenly, Marie throws a potion on his face that boosts his status ailments for 180 seconds. After that, Reiji rushes at Gardanda once again, and now he is determined to defeat the monster before the effects of the elixir wear off. He keeps attacking Gardanda's legs to weaken it, but every time he lands a hit, he also takes damage in return. Even so, Reiji continues fighting because he is waiting for the perfect chance to use his vengeance's mind technique, which is an attack capable of dealing 9,240 points of damage. In the middle of the battle, a crimson rock suddenly swoops down and attacks Reiji. At that moment, he finally realizes why the ogre had fallen from the sky earlier, and the giant bird had been involved all along. As Reiji becomes frustrated by the new threat, Rook encourages him and tells him not to worry about the rock. Rook explains that they will handle the bird themselves, so Reiji should focus entirely on defeating Gardanda. However, Reiji's situation is becoming desperate. He only has 57 seconds left before the elixir's effects disappear. He calculates that if he keeps his recovery to a minimum, he can probably survive only 3 or 4 more attacks. Even with that risk, he charges toward the monster again. This time, Gardanda responds with a powerful attack that hits Reiji hard and pushes him even closer to his limit. With only 10 seconds remaining, he charges straight through the flames fired by the monster and lands a direct hit on Gardanda's head, completely destroying it. For a moment, it looks like the battle is over since the elixir finally wears off, and Reiji quickly realizes that the monster is somehow still alive. Although he destroyed its head, he failed to destroy its real heart, which was hidden inside its stomach. Reiji then receives a notification on his screen asking if he wants to cancel the fight, and the monster also gains its eyes back and starts running after Reiji. Soon, the countdown ends and the system is figuring out 172 patterns to calculate the optimal solution to the current situation. Surprisingly, Nemesis transforms into her second-level form, and the power she feels within is greater than ever. The match continues with Reiji charging at the monster, and this time he notices that his movements are much sharper than usual. He then figured out that its weak point was its belly, but it's also a part that can regenerate. Reiji then continues to receive lots of damage, since he is struggling to deal a heavy blow on that monster. Eventually, he manages to slice both of his legs that sends a poisonous miasma all over the place, making it harder for Reiji to focus. In the end, Reiji manages to destroy the monster, and he gets a title of a MVP, and Marie gives him another potion to heal faster. Just then, Rook and Babylon show up with that crimson rock bird and say that they are going to name it Audrey since they tamed it. Later, a person thanks Reiji for saving their life and then gathers the corpses of those that passed away to give a proper farewell. Meanwhile, a man watches the entire battle on his computer and is shocked by what he sees. He cannot believe that a group led by such a low-level player managed to come this far, and he's even more surprised that Reiji was able to fight the final boss in such a way. After their victory, Reiji and the others finally arrive in Gideon, and the moment they enter the city, they are amazed by how lively and beautiful it is. Soon afterward, the group receives the rewards for their earlier battle. Reiji receives the biggest reward of all, earning 1 million lira for defeating Gardanda, and he quickly realizes that it will make splitting the money fairly among the group much more complicated. Later, Reiji heads outside to test the new fire ability he gained, and he tries using it against several goblins that approach him, but the experiment goes badly. Not only does the attack fail to work properly, but he nearly ends up burning himself in the process. After giving up on that, he decides to test his miasma ability on another monster. Unfortunately, that attempt fails as well, leaving him completely confused about why neither skill is working the way he expected. While he is trying to figure things out, a strange man wearing a penguin costume suddenly appears and introduces himself as Dr. Flamingo and offers Reiji a potion that is supposedly meant to help him recover. Trusting him, Reiji drinks the potion without thinking too much about it, but the moment he finishes drinking it, animal-like ears suddenly grow on top of his head. Reiji immediately panics, while the penguin-clad doctor looks delighted. Dr. Flamingo proudly announces that his newest potion was a success. Angry at being used as a test subject, Reiji demands that the ears be removed right away, and Dr. Flamingo tells him not to worry because the effect is only temporary and the ears will disappear on their own after 12 hours. When Marie sees Reiji with those ears, she quickly draws a freaky picture of him and wonders why he has those dog ears. Reiji tells her that he was planning on visiting Alejandro's shop with these ears, but she says that it's not that startling for a master to suddenly grow animal ears. At the shop, Alejandro welcomes Reiji nicely, that makes him realize that Marie is right since he shouldn't have worried about it. Reiji then prays not to run into Rook, but to his surprise, Rook and Babylon also show up at the shop, and Reiji now has to tell them everything about what they went through. After that, Reiji decides to get a coat for himself since he likes Rook's coat a lot, and now he wants to flex himself in front of the girls. Later, Reiji and Nemesis go outside to test the reward he received from the gacha. Nemesis is furious at him for spending almost 100,000 lira on gacha twice, and Reiji freaks out, telling her not to remind him of that. Surprisingly, Reiji receives a horse that is named Zephyrus Silver and its riding equipment. Reiji tries to ride the horse only to be thrown off while the horse just runs away. Nemesis gets surprised because Reiji is a paladin who should know how to ride a horse, but Reiji tells her that he doesn't have any kind of horse riding skill. Nemesis thinks that it's odd because Paladin is essentially an upgraded knight, and this makes Reiji realize something. He quickly logs out of the game and goes through the game walkthrough site where he finds out that he should have learned horse riding as a low-rank knight. He also finds out that this amulet of the equestrian tribe will let him learn that it's going to cost him another 100,000 lira. When he logs back in, he tells Nemesis that they need to earn some money, and the Nemesis suggests duel arenas where he can fight all he wants with no penalty for drying, and there's prize money too. While they are talking, they notice a group of thugs bothering a young girl and demanding money from her. Reiji decides to step in and help, but before he can do anything, another man suddenly rushes in, acting like a tough gangster who is ready to handle the situation himself. Unfortunately, the thugs knock him down almost instantly, and Reiji is shocked when he learns that the man is actually level 126, yet he still could not stand up to them. One of the thugs then turns his attention toward Reiji and tries to attack him. This time, Reiji fights back and lands a punch using his miasma flame bracer, and the hit is powerful enough to send the thug crashing hard into the ground. After the thugs are dealt with, Reiji uses healing magic on the injured level 126 player. Once he recovers, the man introduces himself as Hugo Lesseps, who is a master and high driver. Curious about what happened, Reiji asks why someone with such a high level was beaten so easily. Hugo explains that even though his level is high, almost all of his physical stats are still close to their starting values, making him much weaker in direct combat than people would expect. A short time later, the young girl approaches them and desperately asks for help, and she explains that her brother has been kidnapped by a gang known as the Gauss Macy gang. According to her, the gang is infamous for demanding money from its victims, and if people cannot pay, the gang reportedly eats them. Hearing this, Reiji and the others realize the situation is far more serious than they first thought. Suddenly, a young girl shows up while dragging two thugs who escaped earlier, and that surprises Reiji that she managed to take them down alone. The girl then tells Hugo that she questioned the captured enemies and learned the location of their hideout. According to the information she gathered, the hideout is located somewhere within the Cruella mountain belt. After that, She jokingly wonders why Hugo is spending time with a Lulicon, and this immediately annoys both Reiji and Nemesis, and they become angry at her for saying something like that. The situation quickly turns into an argument as Nemesis and the girl begin bickering with each other. Later on, the group arrives at a forest base as part of their new quest. Hugo reveals that his main weapon is actually a robot that he can control freely and use in battle. Not long afterward, they reach the location where the kidnapped children are supposedly being held. However, when they enter the base, they discover a horrifying sight as most of the children have already been killed and transformed into undead monsters. At the same time, Hugo comes under attack from a giant boss monster that is guarding the facility. During the battle, Hugo reveals his embryo, Psycho, and combines her with his robotic suit to increase his combat power. After a fierce fight, he eventually succeeds in defeating the boss. Meanwhile, Reiji makes his way down to the lower levels of the base, and he discovers what appears to be the only surviving child left alive. However, just as Reiji is about to rescue him, the child suddenly attacks him instead. After that, Reiji lies on the ground bleeding non-stop, and the guy says that the dagger that struck him is coated with a poison and paralysis-inflicting potion. Macy, who is the leader of the Gauss Macy gang, thinks that his anger should subside once he became the immortal king of corpses and the conditions to turn 5,000 years worth of life into undead. Suddenly, Macy's arm is cut off by Reiji, who says that he is going to kill him no matter what. Macy uses his ability to try and attack Reiji, who then moves towards him, and this scares him even more, thinking if he is struck by his weapon with purifying silver light, he won't be able to regenerate. Macy quickly uses the power of the awakened undead that regenerates the skeletons that tries to attack Reiji, who then manages to kill them. Macy tries to run away, but Reiji follows him outside, where Macy runs into Hugo in his new form, and he asks him if he wants hell or divine punishment. Since Macy doesn't reply, Hugo decides to give him the divine punishment he so desires, and when Macy turns around he finds Reiji standing there. Now that he doesn't have anywhere to escape, he thinks that the Crystal of Resentment is the very thing he needs to become the King of Corpses, and if he dies now then it will all be meaningless. Macy decides to use the spell, but it gets blocked by counter-absorption, and Macy then tries to run before being stabbed by Reiji. Macy desperately begins begging for his life, and promises that he will give them 70 million lira if they spare him. When Reiji slowly extends his arm toward him, Macy immediately assumes that he is interested in the money and is willing to accept the offer. However, Reiji's arm suddenly starts glowing, and he tells Macy that his life alone is enough payment. Without hesitation, Reiji delivers a powerful punch straight to Macy's head, and Reiji collapses to the ground. As he lies there, he believes that he is finally dying because the reverse effect that had been protecting him from his debuffs has worn off. Seeing him fall, Nemesis quickly rushes over and asks whether he has any debuff potions left, but Reiji is unable to answer. Hugo immediately steps in and gives him an elixir along with high spirit water, an item capable of removing curses. After recovering and getting back on his feet, Reiji notices Macy's inventory still lying there, and Hugo explains that everything inside now belongs to Reiji because he was the one who defeated Macy. Despite that, Reiji says he has no interest in taking anything that belonged to such a monster. With the battle finally over, Hugo calls for Psycho to come over, and she transforms back into her human form, which completely surprises Nemesis. Reiji then notices a strange crest on Psycho's hand and asks about it. Hugo explains that it is a maiden skill known as Crest Disguise, and the group wastes no more time and heads deeper into the dungeon so they can rescue the children and bring them to safety. When the group leaves, a bunch of thugs arrive on the ground to steal the treasure that is Macy's inventory. The thugs get surprised to see the coins falling out of that inventory, while one of them notices a weird object that gets stuck to his hand that gets activated once it recognizes that its official user that is supposed to be Macy is already dead. The cursed thug then kills all the other thugs instantly, and then reveals its final form that turns out to be a massive four-legged beast. That evening, Reiji and the others arrive outside and get surprised to see that strange monster, thinking it would seem the monster is made from the corpses that were lying around over there. Reiji also figures out that they lack attack power, and his weapons are also not worthy enough to deal with him. Nemesis then thinks that she is getting this strange feeling from her damage counter. Suddenly, a girl comes out of the forest, and the monster tries to attack her, but Reiji just uses his flame ability on him and then slices off his leg. He then tells Hugo to take the children and run away from there, saying they have to save the children anyhow. The fight continues with Reiji dealing with the monster, and he notices that their normal attacks are meaningless if it can regenerate that fast. Nemesis then figures out that the feeling that she was having earlier was because of Macy's grudge controlling that monster. Soon, the monster notices Hugo in a carriage and runs after it, but Reiji doesn't give up either and slices the monster's leg. He then tries to cause another attack, but the monster just uses a deadly mixer attack on him that sends him towards crashing the tree. Nemesis then transforms back to her human form and saves him from the fall using her own body. In a flashback, young Reiji saves a girl from getting crushed by a truck, and this all happened when his brother took part in a martial arts tournament. Later, Reiji's brother tells him that it's all his fault that he is hurt, and his brother tries to comfort him, saying he shouldn't regret trying to save the life of another person. Since then, Reiji promised himself that he is not going to lose no matter what happens and keep moving forward. Then, a female appears in front of Reiji saying she is the life and mind the ogre failed to give birth to, and says that he should use her and give his all to grab a hold of the possibility. When Reiji gets his consciousness, he finds Nemesis fighting that monster all by herself, so he decides to step in. Reiji then uses miasma to distract the monster, and using his powers he attacks the monster's head straight up, causing it to die on the spot. On their way back, Nemesis tells Reiji that they should fight to protect others, and she will be the one protecting him. Meanwhile, Hugo and the girl run into Flamingo, who tells them that if their plan goes well then the war will end with only minimal casualties. Flamingo then removes the penguin outfit and says that he wants an all-out war and wants to bring an end to the war between the Imperium and the Kingdom. The following day, some carriages are moving through a path when a girl tries to get on top of the carriage, and when she almost drops, Master Shuan Yu saves her. Shuan Yu notices that something stinks, and the girl wonders if she is the one smelling bad here. Shuan Yu then calls her by the named song and tells her to get down, and a bullet falls right in front of her. It turns out, there are several people hiding beside a rock with snipers, and they are surprised to see that the bullet they shot got blocked. The guy with the red hairs thinks that they are up against a Huang He superior job, and the guy introduces himself as Eldridge, king of burglary and owner of Goblin Street. He thinks that the carriages are going to be within firing range soon, and that's when he will use this to take them down. Surprisingly, he notices Shuan Yu standing on the ground, and then his own eyes start showering in blood and he vanishes in the air. The group of thugs then gets surprised, but they are too late as Shuan Yu appears and kills them instantly. Meanwhile, Nemesis is taking a shower after a long time, and Reiji is getting impatient since they are going to be late for their meetup with Marie and the others. At lunch, Nemesis asks Marie to give them tips for getting their revenge against that superior killer someday, and Reiji thinks the same since she has been playing longer than he has. Marie replies that she has been playing the game longer than almost anyone else, and then asks Reiji what he thinks his biggest weakness is. After thinking about it, Reiji admits that his attack range is too short, and he also explains that whenever Nemesis's skills fail or do not work the way he expects, the situation can quickly turn against him. After hearing his answer, Marie advises him to focus on raising either his agility or endurance. She explains that the superior killer possesses a superior job that specializes in high agility, and if Reiji wants even a small chance of competing against opponents like that in the future, he will need to improve those two stats as much as possible. Marie then starts talking about embryos and explains that every embryo has an ultimate skill. According to her, this is the strongest ability an embryo can possess, and it is usually named after the embryo itself. Hearing this makes Nemesis curious, and she points out that she has never actually seen Marie's embryo before. The question immediately makes Marie nervous, but she admits that her embryo is called Arc-en-Ciel. Before Nemesis can ask any more questions, Rook and Babylon suddenly arrive. Marie excitedly greets them because their appearance gives her the perfect excuse to stop talking about her own embryo. She quickly changes the subject and shows everyone the tickets she bought using the remaining money from the Gardanda bounty. After that, Marie says that it's time for them to split up and meet again at the time on the tickets. At the Adventure Guild, Reiji is shocked to see 80 million lira on their table, wondering how they could get so much for defeating the Gauss Macy gang, and Nemesis says that it includes a bonus as well. Outside, they find Shu spending time with a group of children, and he is having fun entertaining them and keeps making them laugh with his jokes and playful behavior. While watching him, Reiji notices a strange animal sitting on top of Shu's head. Before he can ask what it is, a woman suddenly arrives and apologizes to Shu for making him look after the creature. As Nemesis looks at the woman, she notices a scar on her wrist and immediately gets the feeling that she has seen an embryo connected to her before. Later, the group arrives at Shu's house and Nemesis wonders what he actually does for a living. Reiji explains that Shu once won a huge overseas lottery, and after receiving the prize money he bought several apartment buildings and has been living off the rental income ever since. Because of that, he was able to retire early and spend his time however he wanted. Not long afterward, Reiji invites Hugo and the young girl over so he can distribute the prize money they earned. Hugo is impressed by Reiji's honesty and thinks it is unusual that he is willing to share the reward. While they are talking, Reiji becomes curious about Hugo's outfit and asks whether he is really comfortable walking around dressed like that. Hugo explains that the clothes he is wearing are actually the official driver uniform of his clan, the Triangle of Wisdom. When it is finally time for Hugo to leave, he tells Reiji that there is one thing he wants him to remember. The advice sounds strange at first because Hugo simply says, "the West." Reiji is confused by this and asks what he means, and Hugo explains that it is not a big deal and points out that today's fighter, Figaro, will be entering the arena from the western side. That night, the match begins in the stadium, and a young girl fights another person with lots of techniques that surprises everyone. Marie tells Reiji that both masters have sixth form embryos like Juliet the Fallen Knight and Chelsea the Great Pirate. The match continues with Juliet using her ultimate move, that is a mixed attribute magic attack. Eventually, Juliet wins the match and Reiji is surprised to see how powerful she looks. After that, Reiji goes downstairs to find his brother Shu talking to another person in a lion costume who turns out to be Figaro. After that, Reiji decides to bet 60 million lira on Figaro that makes Nemesis furious, and she kicks him straight in the face. Shuan Yu then shows up and tells Reiji that all that money is going down the drain and says that everyone is just disrespecting him at this point. Reiji notices a girl on Shuan Yu's arm and tries to attack Shuan Yu, but Shu shows up on time and stops them. Shuan Yu thinks that Shu looks powerful, and he says that he is just a costume fanatic, and when Shuan Yu tries to attack him, Shu deflected it as fast as he could. When Shuan Yu tries to leave, Reiji asks him about the girl he is holding, and he says that she is just his companion and asks Reiji if he came after him because he thought he would have kidnapped her. Shu then tells Reiji that Shuan Yu is one of the 4 strongest players in the Huang He Empire, so they need to be careful around him. Sometime later, Reiji and the others arrive at their box. When Marie and the others see Shu standing there, they are surprised and quickly ask who he is. Reiji explains that Shu is simply his brother who just happened to end up in the same box as them, and Marie starts freaking out and has trouble staying calm. Not long after that, it is finally time for the main event to begin, and everyone in the stadium is so excited that they immediately start cheering when Shuan Yu and Figaro enter the arena. Since this match is expected to be the biggest fight in history, there are several special rules in place. Items that can cancel instant death damage are not allowed, and consumable healing items are banned as well. After hearing about these rules, Shu points out that Figaro would have a big advantage if those items were allowed to be used, and the comment makes Reiji wonder if that would really make any difference in the end. Soon, the barrier is set up around the battlefield and everything is ready for the fight to start. The match starts off with Figaro and Shuan Yu attacking each other with super fast blows that shocked Reiji, and Shu says that the staff has messed up the barrier settings. Shu then explains that the barrier can be set to slow the internal speed to allow the viewers to see what is happening, but the two fighting are moving too fast for that. The commentator then says that they are adjusting the speed slower, which shows Figaro dodging all the attacks of Shuan Yu. Reiji notices that Shuan Yu's own attacks are hitting his arms but dealing hardly any damage, and Shu mentions that those arms must be his superior embryo. Shuan Yu then uses his Ballet ability along with some other talisman techniques to cause a massive explosion in the stadium, but Figaro blocks that with 0 damage. Shu says that it's an equipment skill and that the special reward Clark he always wears can block all outside interference, if only for a short time. Surprisingly, Figaro drops his blade and falls to his knees, and it is revealed that Shuan Yu has already taken part of his lung, even feeling disappointed that he missed hitting his heart. Reiji starts thinking that if Figaro's special reward gear truly blocks damage from all directions, then no attack should have been able to reach him at all. Rook then says that Shu must have already figured out how Shuan Yu's ultimate skill works, and Shu responds by saying that Rook has actually come up with a pretty good idea. The group then assumes that Figaro's secret strength is that he has never shown his superior embryo, and they believe he still has not used it in this fight. However, Shu says they are all wrong, explaining that Figaro has actually been using it from the very start of the match. After that, Figaro suddenly removes all of his clothes, and both fighters continue the battle at full power. Nemesis notices that it is the same kind of attack and defense pattern as before, and Reiji starts to wonder how that is even possible when Figaro only has one lung left. Shuan Yu once again tries to strike forward with his sharp hand, but Figaro manages to cut off his fingers, which remind Reiji of something important. Reiji then asks Nemesis what Figaro's equipment slots look like, and she answers that he is currently wearing about 25 different pieces of gear. Reiji then tells Shu that Figaro's embryo makes his weapon mightier the fewer pieces of gear he has equipped, and that's all he can think of with him getting stronger as he takes off his gear. The fight continues with Figaro performing even better than before, and then he throws his blade and generates his special weapon, which is on a whole other level. Shuan Yu doesn't back down either, and uses one of her superior items as well, and he thinks that he might be able to take down Figaro with this one. Figaro then charges at Shuan Yu that causes his own arm to cut off and Shuan Yu's weapon to fly in the air as well. Even after that, Shuan Yu's claw ends up piercing into Figaro's chest, and everyone believes he has finally lost the fight. However, it turns out Shuan Yu still cannot fully break through because of Figaro's embryo, which is protecting him. In that moment, Figaro quickly turns the battle around and uses his sword to cut Shuan Yu in half. He then follows up with an overdrive technique to finish him off, securing his win in the match. Somewhere in the crowd, a man who came all the way from Gardanda is watching the fight. He feels happy and thinks he will go back home with a great story to tell everyone. Meanwhile, Shu suddenly senses something is wrong and says that someone has stopped time inside the barrier, and he reveals that the person responsible is Flamingo. Right after that, Flamingo removes his costume in front of everyone, and the crowd instantly begins to show hatred toward him. He then openly says that he was the one who killed the former king and also a high-ranking person from the Drive Imperium. He introduces himself as Franklin, who is actually a Giga professor. At that moment, all the players rush in and attack him using their strongest abilities, but none of their attacks even leave a scratch on him. Then a bird suddenly flies down and lands on his arm. Franklin tells everyone to pay attention, and with a snap of his fingers he turns the bird into the second princess, Elizabeth. In a flashback, Marie finds a young girl being forcefully taken into an alley, while some thugs talk about how much they can get paid for her. Marie steps in and beats up the thugs. That makes the young girl excited, but then the knights also show up and call Marie suspicious. The young girl then grabs Marie's hand and drags her as she runs away, and Marie also thinks that if they get caught then something might be destined to happen. Marie then takes the young girl on top of a roof to escape from the knights, and later they sit at a garden where the young girl enjoys her candy. The girl introduces herself as Elizabeth, who is the second princess of this nation, and that doesn't surprise Marie since she already knew about it. Marie asks her why she was in that alley with no attendants, and she replies that they come all the way to Gideon, and they wouldn't let her outside, so she sneaks out to do some sightseeing. Elizabeth then tells Marie that she would love it if she could show her around, and Marie happily accepts. Back in present, Franklin tells everyone that no one can do anything about him as he is going to kill another royal family member, which gets them sent straight to jail. Before he could say anything else, one of the players from the audience attacks him, and he gets furious thinking they are just taking him as a joke. Franklin then makes the player melt after turning into some kind of liquid and says that it is an oxygen slime technique. Another player then attacks that oxygen slime guy, but that just causes a blast in the audience seat, so Franklin says that clowns who put fire near liquid oxygen will lose their lab privileges. Franklin then takes out a device from his coat, and when he presses a button, another oxygen slime appears. However, Franklin explains that he set up multiple devices throughout the city which will release random monsters every time he presses the button, and he also challenges them that either they destroy this switch or get him to take the death penalty. Shu wonders why would he announce all this first and tell them how to win, and Hugo thinks that the point is to make it look preventable, then have them fail. Outside, all the magicians are attacking the barrier to make it weaken, but Franklin tells them through a monster that every blow releases a monster somewhere in town. Meanwhile, Franklin is sitting on top of a flying monster together with Elizabeth. Elizabeth asks him why he is attacking Gideon, and Franklin explains that he simply wants to put on a little entertainment to celebrate the end of all the war-related matters. He also points out that the kingdom's mightiest knight as its greatest mage, and even the king, are already dead. Back in the arena, Nemesis asks Shu how strong the kingdom's forces outside the stadium are. Shu explains that most of the masters with combat-focused jobs have come to watch the tournament matches, which means the masters remaining outside are not likely to be very powerful. Reiji then places his hand against the barrier and is surprised to discover that he can pass right through it. After seeing this, Shu quickly figures out the reason. He explains that it is an arena barrier, a special barrier that normally restricts movement both into and out of the arena. However, those restrictions do not apply to players who are level 50 or lower. As soon as that becomes clear, all of the players begin searching for other rookies, and they start getting ready by casting buffs and setting up automatic healing effects. Seeing this, Rook asks Shu if he understands what is happening. Shu then turns to Reiji and bluntly tells him that if he goes up against Franklin and his forces, he will most likely die. He asks whether Reiji still plans to move forward despite knowing that. Reiji answers without hesitation, and he points out that a girl has been taken right in front of him and that an entire city is about to fall into chaos. Because of that, he says there is no way he can simply give up and remain sitting there doing nothing. Reiji then uses his full potential miasma attack, and slowly the place turns into smoke and everyone's health starts to decrease. One of the guys then tries to shoot a fire ability, but Rook uses his monster ability to deflect the attack, and the entire group of people is struggling badly. Reiji appears out of nowhere and uses vengeance as his power to destroy one of the players, and that scares the other guy, saying if they lose here their betrayal's all for nothing. The player then charges at the other guy and slices him off in half, but despite that the guy gets attacked by that armor and falls on the ground. Rook then walks over and picks up the piece of armor, and he points out that even a higher ranked player can still be hit as long as someone manages to find the right opening. Meanwhile, Elizabeth notices that Franklin is looking at something on a device and becomes curious about it. She asks him what he is watching, and Franklin casually hands the device over so she can take a look herself. A moment later, Franklin is suddenly hit by a brutal shot from an unknown attacker. Before he can react, the mysterious person manages to grab Elizabeth and take her away from him. It is then revealed that the attacker is actually Marie, and Elizabeth hands Marie the device she received from Franklin. Marie asks if she knows how to use it, and Elizabeth explains that the diamond symbol represents Franklin, while the heart and club symbols represent his trusted followers. However, Marie is shocked when she realizes that Franklin is somehow still alive even after taking damage that should have been enough to kill him many times over. Then, Elizabeth turns back into a bird and Franklin's voice comes through the device, and he tells Marie that he is taking the princess back. Not long afterward, Marie runs into a strange masked man and immediately decides to face him in battle. Elsewhere, Hugo stops every player who tries to chase after him by freezing them in place with his abilities. In a flashback, Velderbel wanted to become a composer, but he couldn't fulfill his dream of becoming one because he doesn't know much about knights. When he starts regretting his life decisions for not learning about the Age of Night sooner, he came across Infinity Dendrogram. Back in the present, Marie tries to shoot at the player, but none of the shots reach him. Marie then runs away from his attacks, thinking that he is using different types of skills like a vibration field that defends against attacks, sound-based hypnosis, and ultrasonic scalpel. She then says that his performance is really quite enchanting, and wonders if it's his king of orchestra skills that make it sound so good. Marie also asks why someone like him would be in the robot production clan, and he replies that it's because Franklin might just become a hero. The player then reduces the range of his vibration field, and Marie believes it to be due to running low on MP. When she looks above, she happens to find a monster playing the piano, and she quickly realizes that the opponent named Velderbel's embryo is none other than Bremen. We then get a flashback of Marie when her manga got cancelled by the publisher, and after writing about it for 2 years she was flabbergasted. Later, Marie got offered a deal at serialization from another company, but the worst part is that she finds out that she is suffering from writer's block and could no longer write her main character. Soon, she finds out about the Infinity Dendrogram and thinks that this is a great virtual world where they could do anything with new possibilities. Marie also decides to continue being as her main character in Infinity Dendrogram by naming herself Marie and patent her speech after hers, and her hope is that role-playing as her might just breathe new life into Marie within. Back in the present, Marie attacks Velderbel with everything she has, pushing out enough power to even surprise him. Shocked by her performance, he asks how she was able to avoid and deal with his Bremen ability. As the fight continues, Marie reflects on her ultimate job skill, Art of Vanishing, and the skill allows her to disappear from the world itself, granting perfect stealth that is extremely powerful, but it also burns through a huge amount of SP while it is active. Marie then pulls out one of her special bullets and declares that she is going to kill him tonight. Hearing that immediately makes Velderbel nervous, and he says that he cannot afford to die here because history is about to be made in the kingdom and he wants to witness it with his own eyes. After hearing his words, Marie calmly places the bullet back into her pistol and activates Daisy Scarlet's explosion death technique. At the same time, Velderbel also unleashes his own special ability, and both of them launch their attacks at one another simultaneously. When the clash ends, it becomes clear that Velderbel is the one who has lost and Marie is still standing unharmed, and the girl connected to her bullet is also completely without a scratch. In the end, he dies and Franklin reacts by thinking that he did not expect Velderbel to be defeated so quickly. He also begins to feel that Marie may possess even greater potential than he originally believed. Later, Franklin goes to Hugo and notices the people frozen and says that he should have shattered them. Hugo replies that he was trying to save ammo. That makes Franklin curious, and he asks him about his settings, so Hugo says that only masters unaffiliated with a Triangle of Wisdom can do that. Before leaving, Franklin tells him to tweak his settings a little, so that Reiji could pass through since he wants to fight him. After that, Liliana and the other royal guards show up to take Elizabeth back, but Franklin tells them that they have no right to attack him since he is holding Elizabeth hostage. However, Liliana says that the royal guards are bound by magic that makes them unable to hurt royalty, and then Liliana attacks Franklin to prove what she was trying to say. We then get a flashback of Hugo, who was originally Yuri Gautier, a female born into an upper-class family in the south of France. Her father was a wealthy man who made a fortune in his lifetime, and her mother, once an actress on the stage, was beautiful and kind. However, her father was domineering and took it out on her mother, and her mother bore it all with nary a harsh word or action towards them girls. Yuri's sister was the one who was always kind to her, and when her pet iguana died, their grandfather made a plaster likeness of it. Even so, their father hated seeing her make things with plaster and often took out his anger on Yuri's sister, and the abuse eventually became too much for her to endure, causing her to leave home. After that, Yuri discovered a world where the wish she carried in her heart could actually come true. When she entered that world, she chose to become a male character named Hugo. Back in the present, Hugo tells Psycho that if the kingdom surrenders now, they can avoid a meaningless war. He explains that their group is only targeting masters and has no interest in causing unnecessary damage beyond that. Just then, Reiji finally arrives and is surprised when he notices a sign stating that no masters are allowed to pass beyond that point, and he then asks Hugo whether he wants him to go through or not. Hugo replies that Reiji is free to pass if he wishes, but he cannot allow Reiji's friends to come along because his boss specifically wants to fight Reiji himself. Hearing this, Rook tells Reiji not to waste any more time and to keep moving forward. He says that he will handle everything on this side in Reiji's place, and is certain that if Reiji fails to arrive in time, he will regret it for the rest of his life. After that, Reiji charges straight toward Hugo, and when he crashes into Hugo's armor and breaks through it, he manages to pass right through and continue forward. With Reiji gone, Rook steps up to face Hugo himself and declares that he will fight with everything he has. A flashback reveals that Rook was born in London. His father was a detective, while his mother was a thief. Because of this unusual background, he ended up inheriting skills from both sides. When he turned 15, both of his parents died in a plane crash. Left completely alone, he realized something important, that he had never actually made a single real decision for himself in his entire life. Feeling lost and unsure of what to do next, he came across the headgear for Infinity Dendrogram in his father's study. There, he also found a letter written by someone who had asked his father to investigate the game's hidden secrets, and this discovery sparked his interest and pulled him into the world of the game. Back in the present, Hugo is still locked in battle with Rook, who Rook gives orders to Marilyn to launch an attack. Hugo quickly realizes that Rook is predicting all of their movements in advance. He understands that if the fight continues like this, they will be the ones who run out of energy first and lose the battle. Rook thinks that he freezes about the same amount every time, but the intervals are all over the place. He realizes that the second hit of Frozen came 39 seconds after the first, and third went into effect 130 seconds after that. Soon, he realizes that there are 3 types of freezing attacks, including gradual freezing over time, that happened to him and Audrey. In addition to that, there are those who got completely frozen in an instant, like the ice status of Masters, and those who didn't get frozen at all, like Babylon and Marilyn. When Hugo moves in to attack Rook, he finally realizes that La Porte d'Offer has been counting all this time. Even so, he lands a powerful hit that sends Rook crashing straight into a wall. Surprisingly, Rook gets back on his feet and declares that he is still going to defeat Hugo right there. Hugo is impressed that Rook can still speak with such confidence after taking a hit like that. Rook then openly expresses how much he dislikes Hugo, saying that his attitude is so terrible that it irritates him every time he sees it. Annoyed by those words, Hugo rushes forward to attack again, but by then Rook has already activated his Union Jack skill, which allows him to transform into a different form. Rook immediately follows up by using Little Flare to force Hugo backward, and with a tri-horn uppercut, he manages to crack part of Hugo's armor. Hugo desperately tries to stop the attack with the blade on his left arm, but the impact is too much for him to handle. After that, both fighters charge at each other and unleash their strongest abilities at the same time. The clash comes close to killing Hugo, while Rook is forced back into his normal form afterward. A short time later, Hugo notices a mass of liquid metal moving toward a button that controls a hatch. When the button is pressed and the hatch opens, Rook and his embryo immediately activate the temptation ability on Hugo, and the attack works perfectly, allowing them to secure the victory. Meanwhile, Franklin tells everyone that he set up a monster who is being projected as a hologram over Gideon and the royal capital. Reiji asks him why would he do something like that, and he says that he did that to snap this nation's very spirit in two, and for that, he needs the people they rely on to have no choice but to play into his hands. Moreover, he says that he has a switch that will release all the monsters in town, and it's configured to set every last monster free in 652 seconds. Franklin says that the only way to stop him is by defeating the RSK, but the people that are going to fight him are Liliana and Reiji. The fight continues with Reiji getting shot with energy blasts, and he tries his best to dodge them while using Vengeance as his move to attack the RSK, but it doesn't work either. Franklin then reveals that the animal ear he gave him was actually a poison, and the slime he gave him is also the same. He explains that it hangs out inside his body for 24 hours before it's digested, and while it's in there, it's continuously transmitting his status and skill information. During the battle, Reiji risks his life to figure out that the monster displays a name for a different monster when it shines the light, which means this is not the monster that's attacking, but the AniSlayer was the only thing he summoned with his call. Reiji then tells Liliana and the other guy about it, and now they are ready to defeat the AniSlayer. Eventually, the three of them manage to deal a lot of the damage to AniSlayer, and Reiji uses his burning ability to burn it down. After that, Liliana uses her healing powers on Reiji, who just fainted, and she says that she can restore his HP, but she is unable to heal his charred arm. Nemesis tells her to keep him alive for now, since she is sure he doesn't want to back out now. Franklin then starts clapping, saying they are now 251 seconds past the original monster release deadline, and he also tells the fact that his remote device broke and his modded monsters never did get unleashed. Franklin then takes out a spare remote, and he repeatedly presses it, which makes Nemesis worried, and Franklin makes fun of her. Liliana then tells the knights to take over Reiji's treatment, and then Franklin summons DGP and KOS that are supposed to be his strongest fighters except for AniSlayer, who is the weakest. Franklin then says that he has no intention of losing this fight tonight, and wonders why the monsters haven't released yet even though the remote is working fine. Meanwhile, Hugo tells Rook that Franklin promised him that he is going to keep the casualties to minimum, but Rook just calls him blind for thinking something like that. Hugo argues that he has known Franklin for a very long time and does not believe that he would ever be the kind of person to kill innocent civilians. Rook disagrees and points out that he only knows Franklin through stories he has heard and through the events that have happened recently. Based on what he has seen, Rook believes Franklin is hiding something far more dangerous. He says that most people would come to the same conclusion, and that Hugo is probably the only person who still refuses to believe it. Rook then makes a prediction, telling Hugo that Franklin is about to say something truly terrible. To Hugo's surprise, the prediction turns out to be completely correct. Franklin announces that he is moving on to Plan C, and he reveals that this plan involves the complete destruction of Gideon by a force of 56,826 modified monsters. Right after making that announcement, Franklin summons his superior embryo. The embryo takes the form of a plant fortress, appearing as a gigantic factory built on top of a massive dragon-like walking monster. Moments later, the dragon opens its mouth and huge numbers of monsters begin pouring out from inside it. Franklin proudly declares that there is no way to stop them because they will continue carrying out their mission even if he is killed. He further explains that he originally created the monsters using his pandemonium ability, but they no longer belong to him. Since he already released them and allowed them to act on their own, destroying him will not stop the invasion. Just then, Reiji manages to get back on his feet and calls for his horse, Silver. After mounting Silver, he takes Nemesis with him and prepares to move into action. Reiji then tells Franklin that his battle is far from over and says that he can't stop his pace. Reiji then charges towards the monsters and through his miasma gas that manages to make the monsters unconscious, while some of them attack Reiji using their energy blast. When one of the monsters almost kills him, Marie shows up in her shadow form and freaks out when Reiji recognizes her. Nemesis then asks Marie if she is really the superior killer, and Marie replies that she will answer that question later once they have finished dealing with the current situation. After that, the two of them begin working together to fight off the monsters. Watching from a distance, Franklin points out that there is no way two ordinary masters can stop an army of 5,000 modified monsters on their own. Just then, Rook arrives along with several other players who have come to provide support. With more fighters joining the battle, everyone begins working together against the monster army, and to Franklin's surprise they are actually making good progress. However, the giant monster known as DGP starts gathering a huge amount of energy, and once fully charged it begins targeting the players who have been attacking it with magic. Marie quickly realizes that some Dragon King parts have been mixed into DGP. Because of that, she warns that the longer they wait, the more dangerous the situation will become. Soon afterward, DGP charges directly toward Reiji at high speed, and just before the monster can strike him, Shu suddenly appears and uses his power to make the dragon disappear. After saving Reiji, Shu turns his attention to Franklin and tells him that he made a huge mistake with the game he decided to play that night. Shu declares that he is going to wipe out every single one of Franklin's precious monsters. True to his words, he unleashes a powerful attack and defeats large numbers of monsters with a single move. The display of strength is so overwhelming that even Reiji is left completely surprised by what he sees. On the other hand, Shuan Yu is still alive and Figaro is completely healed up, and they are watching the match from the stadium. Franklin says that as great as Shu's strength may be, but it's still only individual strength, and the next 50,000 series monsters he unleash will spread out and invade Gideon. After that, the ships start shooting at the massive dragon factory monster, and Franklin realizes that he is no longer going to win, and now he wants to delete their victory and his defeat. He then presses a button on his remote device that activates a weird underground monster. However, a guy in the audience seat of the stadium notices that in using his mud control power he completely traps that insect monster underground. Franklin notices the army machine shooting and thinks that all those shells must have cost them 3 billion lira, and since his monsters aren't cheap either, so they are somewhat equal. Franklin also wonders why Shu is not firing at Pandemonium, as he thinks that if he'd wanted to he is sure he could have shot down his embryo before it spat out all 50,000 monsters. Finally, Reiji reaches face to face with Franklin for the final showdown of the battle. Earlier, Reiji asked for Shu's help to reach where Franklin is since there is something he has to ask Franklin, and something he needs to do. Franklin then asks Reiji if he knows the master named Shu Starling, and when Reiji says that he is his brother, Franklin thinks that the older brother is a superior while the younger one is just a weakling. Ignoring that, Reiji asks him who the Tions are, and Franklin starts laughing like a psychopath, saying anyone who thinks this is a game is an idiot. He explains that apart from the system aspects, every facet goes well beyond the level of any game, and if it weren't for the system reminding them that it's a game, there is no way anyone could tell it's a game. Reiji asks him about the people who live in this world, and Franklin says that they are just AI with sophisticated minds that make them indistinguishable from humans. Franklin also says that even if it was Earth with his same situation, conditions and abilities, he would have done the same thing. Suddenly, a massive explosion echoes through the area, and the entire place begins to fall apart. Seeing this, Franklin realizes that the others must have been working on something behind the scenes while Reiji was being sent to buy them time. Before Reiji can reach Franklin and attack him, Hugo suddenly appears in front of him and he warns Reiji that he needs to build up his damage counter first. Otherwise he will never be able to break through Franklin's armor. The battle begins with Hugo rushing straight at Reiji. During the fight, Reiji uses his vengeance technique and the attack becomes powerful enough to pierce through Hugo's armor. The strike lands successfully and ends up defeating Hugo, and now that he is out of the way, Reiji immediately charges toward Franklin. He delivers a direct punch to Franklin's face while using his fire ability, causing flames to burn him. Franklin is sent falling from the building, and as he falls everything connected to him begins to disappear as well. After the battle is over, Liliana uses her healing abilities on Reiji, and although she is able to treat his injuries, she explains that she cannot restore a limb that has been completely lost. Marie then points out that there is only one person capable of performing that kind of miracle, and that person is the high priestess named Tsukuyo Fuso. With the crisis finally over, Shuan Yu, and Figaro gather together for drinks and food. As they relax, they spend the evening talking about everything they have gone through and reflecting on the journeys that brought them to this point. Meanwhile, the strange guy with mud casting ability is on his way back to his kingdom, thinking the trip took longer than he expected. The next day, Franklin, who is also alive, fires Hugo and other players because they overlooked him and failed. Franklin also asks him why he would come all the way there to save him when he felt that he betrayed him. Franklin then tells Hugo to travel the world because he can experience all sorts of things and learn a lot. Later, a knight informs Liliana that the Princess Elizabeth once again left behind a note and ran away. It turns out, the princess is having her fun time with Reiji and his group. How long do you think it will take for Reiji to fully master his abilities and finally track down the superior killer who ambushed him in Na's forest? Comment Elixir if you'd like a part 2 of this series. Make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more anime recaps.